He's still here. Yeah, he's still in the house. We're at 308 Negro Arroyo Lane.
What if I told you that the most dangerous drug lord in American history wasn't some cartel boss or street kingpin? He was a high school chemistry teacher making $43,000 a year, working a second job at a car wash just to keep the lights on. This is the story of Walter White, a man who was given 2 years to live and used every single day to become someone the world would never forget. This is the entire story of Breaking Bad. Walter Hartwell White is 50 years old. He lives in a modest home in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with his pregnant wife Skylar and his teenage son, Walter Jr., who has cerebral palsy. Walt is a genius, a real, legitimate genius. He co-founded a company called Gray Matter Technologies back in grad school with his friend Elliot Schwartz. That company went on to be worth billions of dollars. But Walt? He sold his share early for a lousy $5,000 because of a painful falling out over a woman. So instead of being a billionaire rubbing elbows at charity galas, he's standing in front of bored high schoolers trying to explain chemistry to kids who couldn't care less. He works a second job at a car wash, where his own students come in and humiliate him while he's on his hands and knees scrubbing their wheels. He's invisible, he's broke, he's overqualified, and underpaid. And life has absolutely forgotten about Walter White. The day after his 50th birthday, Walt collapses at the car wash. He's rushed to the hospital, and the doctor doesn't sugarcoat it. Inoperable stage 3 lung cancer. 2 years to live if he's lucky. Here's the thing about Walter White. It's not the dying that destroys him. It's the math. He sits at his kitchen table late at night and runs the numbers. Medical bills, mortgage, his son's college fund, a baby on the way. He calculates that he needs exactly $737,000 just to leave his family with something after he's gone. And he has absolutely nothing close to that, not even a fraction. But then, fate throws him a wild card. His brother-in-law, Hank Schrader, is a DEA agent, the loud, confident alpha male type who treats busting drug dealers like a competitive sport. Walt tags along on a ride-along, and from the back seat of Hank's SUV during a meth lab bust, he spots someone scrambling out a window, Jesse Pinkman. A former student, a dropout, a small-time meth cook. And something fundamental shifts inside Walter White. He doesn't see a criminal. He sees a business partner. He tracks Jesse down with a proposition that sounds absolutely insane. You know the business in the street. I know the chemistry. Let's cook. And just like that, a 50-year-old dying chemistry teacher and a 20-something burnout drive a beat-up RV into the middle of the New Mexico desert and start cooking crystal methamphetamine. Now here's where Walt's genius changes the game entirely. Most street meth is about 70% pure on a good day. Walt's very first batch? 99.1% purity. It's not just meth. It's a masterpiece of organic chemistry. It has a signature blue tint that becomes legendary on the streets. Dealers can't believe it. Users can't get enough of it. Nobody in the entire Southwest has ever seen anything like this product. But cooking meth isn't like grading papers. The consequences are immediate and violent. Within days, Walt and Jesse find themselves face to face with a local distributor named Crazy 8 and his cousin Emilio. Things go sideways fast. Emilio is killed when Walt rigs a chemical reaction that fills the RV with phosphine gas. Crazy 8 ends up chained to a pole in Jesse's basement. Walt spends days agonizing over what to do. He makes a pros and cons list. He brings the guy sandwiches. He has real conversations with him. But then Walt notices a broken plate. A shard is missing. Crazy 8 has hidden it as a weapon. waiting for the moment Walt frees him to plunge it into his neck. So Walt wraps a bike lock around the man's throat and strangles him, shaking, crying, horrified at what he's done. There it is. The first kill, the first step into the darkness. And there is no going back. Now pay attention, because this is where things start accelerating hard. Walt's cancer treatment is bleeding every dollar dry. Skylar is getting suspicious about the money, the lies, the late nights. And the meth business? It's nothing but chaos. Walt and Jesse get tangled up with a psychotic drug distributor named Tuco Salamanca, a guy so unhinged he beats one of his own men to death right in front of them just to prove a point about respect. Tuco kidnaps Walt and Jesse, drags them out to a remote desert shack, and nearly kills them both. Walt slips ricin into Tuco's food in a desperate attempt to poison him. The plan doesn't fully work, but Hank tracks Tuco down and kills him in a brutal shootout. Walt and Jesse barely escape with their lives. But here's the twist that changes everything, and nobody saw it coming. Walt's cancer goes into remission. The chemotherapy actually works. He's not dying anymore. A normal person would stop right here, walk away, thank God, and go back to teaching high school chemistry. But Walter White doesn't stop. And that single decision tells you everything you need to know about who this man really is underneath the surface. He didn't start cooking meth because he was dying. He kept cooking because for the first time in his entire miserable, overlooked, underestimated life, he felt powerful. He felt seen. He felt alive. This is where Heisenberg is born. Walt shaves his head, buys a black pork pie hat. He adopts an alter ego, Heisenberg, named after the famous German physicist Werner Heisenberg. When rival dealers encroach on his territory, he walks straight into their turf, carrying a bag of fulminated mercury, a volatile, explosive compound, and detonates it, blowing out an entire floor of a building. "Stay out of my territory," he growls. And the streets of Albuquerque listen. Now let me introduce you to the most terrifying villain in television history, Gustavo "Goose" Fring. This is where Breaking Bad shifts into a completely different gear. Gus owns a chain of fast food chicken restaurants called Los Pollos Hermanos. He donates to law enforcement charities, shakes hands with DEA agents at fundraising dinners. But behind that calm, calculated smile is one of the most ruthless drug lords in the entire American Southwest. Gus sees Walt's blue meth, recognizes the genius behind it, and offers him $3 million for 3 months of cooking in a state-of-the-art underground super lab hidden beneath an industrial laundry facility. Walt says yes. And for a while, things actually work. The meth is flawless. The money is pouring in like a river. But Gus doesn't trust Walt. He sees the ego, the pride, the refusal to follow anyone's rules. So Gus begins grooming Jesse as a replacement, driving a wedge between the two partners. Meanwhile, Walt does something unforgivable. Walt, Jesse, and a new partner named Todd begin cooking using a mobile operation hidden inside homes being fumigated for pests. Lydia Rodart Quayle, a nervous executive with connections to a massive European distribution network, starts shipping Heisenberg's blue meth overseas. The money becomes absolutely staggering. In just a few months, Walt amasses over $80 million in cash. $80 million. He has so much money that Skylar, now laundering it through their car wash, takes him to a storage unit stacked floor to ceiling with bundled bills and says, "How much is enough? How big does this pile have to be?" You'd think he'd stop. He's won. But stopping was never the point. Walt says it himself. "I'm in the empire business." And then the dominoes fall. Hank Schrader, Walt's own brother-in-law, finds a book in Walt's bathroom, a poetry book from Gail Bodisher, Walt's former lab assistant murdered on Walt's orders. Inside the cover, a handwritten inscription, "To my other favorite WW, it's an honor working with you." Hank's entire world collapses. He's been sitting across from Heisenberg at family dinners and birthday parties for over a year. Every handshake, every laugh, every conversation, all of it a lie. What follows is the most devastating stretch of television ever produced. Hank builds a secret case. Jesse, consumed with rage after discovering Walt poisoned a child named Brock to manipulate him, turns informant. Walt, cornered, makes the worst decision of his life. He calls in a gang of neo-Nazis led by Jack Welker to eliminate Jesse. But the confrontation unfolds in the Tohajili Desert, the same stretch of sand where Walt and Jesse cooked their very first batch. And Hank is there too. The firefight erupts. Gomez is killed. Hank is wounded, lying in the dirt. Walt screams. He begs. He offers Jack all $80 million to spare Hank's life. But Hank already knows how this ends. He looks at Walt and delivers the most gut-wrenching line in the entire series. "You're the smartest guy I ever met, and you're too stupid to see he made up his mind 10 minutes ago." Jack shoots Hank dead. Walt collapses in the dirt, screaming. The neo-Nazis take his fortune, leaving him one barrel, roughly $11 million. They capture Jesse and enslave him in an underground lab, chaining him while Todd forces him to cook. Walt goes home to find his world destroyed. Skyler pulls a knife on him. His own son calls the police. Walt grabs baby Holly and runs. But when she cries, "Mama," something inside him shatters completely. He leaves her at a fire station and vanishes into the night. He winds up in a cabin in New Hampshire, alone, freezing, dying. The cancer has roared back with a vengeance. He's the most wanted man in America, hiding in a frozen shack with money nobody can spend. He tries to send cash to his son, but Junior won't take it. "Why don't you just die already?" his own child tells him. Then Walt sees something on television. His former partners, Elliot and Gretchen Schwartz, go on national TV and deny he had any meaningful role in founding gray matter. They erase him from history, and that volcanic rage that drove every terrible decision he ever made ignites one final time. Walt drives back to Albuquerque with nothing but a plan and the certainty he's going to die. He visits Elliot and Gretchen, forcing them, using Badger and Skinny Pete with laser pointers posing as hitmen, to funnel his remaining $9.72 million into a trust for Walter Jr. Then he sees Skyler one final time, and for the first time in 5 seasons, he tells the truth. Not the lie about the family, the raw, honest truth. "I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. And I was alive." Here's what makes Breaking Bad the greatest story ever told on television. It was never about meth, never about money. It was about pride. About a man who spent his whole life being told he wasn't enough, and one day decided to prove the entire world wrong. Every murder, every lie, every manipulation came from the same place. Not desperation, not survival, but ego. Pure, all-consuming ego. That's what makes Walter White a tragedy. He had everything he needed the entire time. A family who loved him. A son who looked up to him. He just couldn't see it through the haze of his own wounded pride. So let me ask you this. At what point did Walter White become the villain? Was it when he strangled Crazy 8? When he watched Jane die? When he poisoned a child? Or was the monster always there, hiding behind the khaki pants and the lesson plans, just waiting for permission to come out? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you think Walter White crossed the line for good. If this video hit you the way it hit me, smash that like button right now, share it with every Breaking Bad fan you know, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a breakdown like this. We've got so much more incredible content coming your way. I'll see you in the next one.